Hey everyone, this is Keith Scott from out in Sydney, Australia. I'm one of the voices of Bullwinkle J. Moose. It's time to watch Relentless and Unstoppable. And so give it up for your main hosts, Douglas Kenny and Andy McPhee.
Hey everybody, this is Doug Kenny and welcome to Relentless and Unstoppable. We have another amazing guest coming on the channel today, so please hit like and subscribe. And after this episode, please stay tuned to the RNU channel for more amazing guests. Let's get this on!
Hey everybody, how you doing? Just a quick little share of why I started Relentless and Unstoppable. It was for one very simple reason, because of Doug Kenny. Nothing to do with me at all, zero. I was just coaching Doug, and he took on the coaching and mentoring, and he made all the changes. He took all the suggestions from his parents as well as my coaching, but it was all about Doug, his breakthrough and his weight loss, his willingness to accept that he is dealing with high functioning autism and other issues, but he's never quit, he's never given up. So we did one interview with him to share his story, and then we decided to start interviewing other people. And Doug has now taken over the whole channel, and he does all the interviews, he runs everything. He's just an amazing young man. So RNU was born from simply what an amazing young man Doug is, and his story needed to be shared.
Yeah, what was it like when you figured out that they wrapped up production and the job was done?
You know, it's like every job. It's sort of like the end of it's kind of like the end of a relationship, but a good, a good ending. So it's bittersweet. The one thing that's really great about the film industry, of doing this as a job, as a gig industry, because that's what you're doing. You're going from one show to another, is you know that there's going to be an end. So it's not like there's no drudgery involved. It's not like knowing that you're going to be sitting in this office for 20 years doing this thing, or 10 years, or whatever. It's project oriented. It's project based, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It gets a little less that and a little more job oriented if you're doing a series that goes on for years and years and years. If you're on a series that goes for 10 years, the people who are really attracted to that, really in their hearts, would rather have a steady job. So that's great for people who are looking for steady jobs. That's about as close as a steady job you're going to get on the production side of this business. I mean, there's plenty of people who are executives and people who are part of the studio systems and production staff that, yeah, they have more regular jobs. They're like 9-to-5s. But if you're in production, on any part of production, it's a gig industry. You're hired beginning of a show and it wraps up. So you have this thing that you're building, and it'd be very similar to, like being a carpenter, that you're on a job where you're building a housing development. You know that it's going to end, but you have a certain amount of things that you're building. And that's kind of a gig industry too, in a way. But certainly film is. And so you go into this production, and you really are hoping to do something unique and different. Everybody thinks that they're reinventing the wheel, and some parts are new, but there's nothing that hasn't been done before in film business, But having said that, you enter this production with a number of other people, some who you may have worked with before, some who are new people, and you become sort of this loose family. Especially if you're working on location, or if you're going someplace, or if you're and especially if it's a very strenuous production where a lot of strife and a lot of difficulty can bring people together. We made it through this. Oh my God, we're brothers. Can do this. But you're setting out to do a project that's going to become a product, and you have an ending. And at the end of that, you feel like you've accomplished something. You know that the ending's coming, and so it's bittersweet. It's sweet because you finally finished a project, and especially if you think it's a really good one, there's a lot of satisfaction with that. But it's bitter because you're saying goodbye to a lot of people who you've made new friends, seeing old friends, saying goodbye to, because you never know if you're going to work with these people again. You may not. Even your own team, I managed to keep together a camera, grip, and electric team somewhat, but you're always losing some people, or when you finally get the next gig, somebody had to take a job, so they're not available. And so there's no guarantee that you're going to be working with the same crowd.
Yeah, for sure. Did you watch the movie Grouchland when it was done?
I did. Well, I had to watch because I did the color timing on it anyway. But not that I had to. I wanted to watch it. And I thought it was really good. I thought it was really cute. It was really fun.
Yeah, fire away, Brendan.
Do you have any certain techniques that you sort of signature techniques that you apply to most films?
With my
Like,
films?
yes, yeah. Like,
Go ahead. Like what?
sorry.
Well, I'll tell you, the things that I really enjoy doing. I'm not a big fan of what tends to be probably 80% of the industry, which is long lenses and a lot of shallow focus. I really love wide lenses up close, a lot of depth of field and composition. I mean, it's just something that I've always enjoyed in film. I've always thought that there's an art form to that. There's also a huge amount of difficulty and a lot of challenges. And having worked 3 movies with John Frankenheimer, who also loved that, we saw a lot of these things the same way, and so we applied them to the films we did. Now, I was the camera operator on 52 Pickup. That was the first time I worked with John, so I didn't really have a lot of say per se in how that was shot. A guy named Joost Vacano, who was a terrific cinematographer. He was the guy who shot Das Boot. He was the director of photography. But I do know that I got an appreciation of how John liked to do stuff, and his enjoyment of using wide lenses and being in close, literally putting the audience in the room. He liked that immediacy. He liked the excitement, the textural thing that you get from being close and wide. It makes the audience feel like they're right there. And so the next time I worked with John was a limited series, a 4-hour limited series called George Wallace. We did that in '97, just before I did the Muppet movies. And Gary Sinise played George Wallace. George Wallace, I don't know if you know, was a governor of Alabama who did a presidential run, but his whole platform was segregation. He wanted segregation now, segregation in the future. He's that guy. And it was during the '60s. He ran for president in '68, and there was an assassination attempt on him, and he ended up getting paralyzed from the waist down. And so it was really his story. And so we shot that movie all wide lenses, deep focus, major compositions were really critical. John was very particular about how he put it. And for me, I just loved it. I loved working with that depth of field, working with juxtaposing actors who you could see both somebody speaking and the other person listening, their reaction at the same time. Which I almost call it like a democratic kind of filmmaking, where you're giving the audience the chance to decide who they're watching, rather than having shallow focus where you're only focused on one character, and it's the filmmaker who's deciding who the audience is going to watch. Do you see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and there's this sort of misconception about something being cinematic because the background's all blurred out, it's all the bouquet of lights, stuff like that. Well, that's pretty, that's great, and that's an important kind of language, but that for some reason has sort of kidnapped the word cinematic, and it's a shame because it really is not. A lot of that came from television initially, because television in the early 50s and 60s were very, very cheap. They didn't have a lot of money to do productions, and so they shot everything with long lenses. Everything was tight shots, medium shots, because they couldn't build big sets. They couldn't go out locations. They had to work fast, and a lot of times you want to use multiple cameras. But it became kind of a look, and there's a lot of beauty in that. So it's fine if you make that choice from an aesthetic reason, because it's the way to tell a story. But a lot of cinematographers, a lot of directors just do it because they think that's what everybody does. That's the look. That's the cinematic look, which is a shame, because would you say 1917 is not cinematic?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Gee, that's all we have for Relentless and Unstoppable. So tune into the next episode to hear more amazing stories from amazing guests. This is Keith Scott from Sydney, Australia, saying so long, and I'm smarter than the average bear. Gee.